Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Jason Tucker, and this is WPwatercooler's WPblab. It's Thursday. It's 7 o'clock. It's time for us to get started with the show. Man, we're going to be doing some fun stuff tonight, aren't we, Bridget?
Oh, yeah. Email marketing.
Email marketing. I say that as a programmer who still doesn't understand how email marketing actually works. So I'm hoping that our guest tonight will actually be able to explain a little bit of this about this to me, and that maybe I'll be able to actually do better at my email marketing tactics. So before we get started and introduce our awesome guest, Bridget, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, my name is Bridget Willard, and I'm the marketing manager for the most robust online donation plugin for WordPress. It's called Give. You can find out more at givewp.com.
That's right, Bridget. I drank for that one. I'm Jason Tucker. You can find me over at Jason Tucker on Twitter. My website is jasontucker.blog, and we do a whole bunch of shows on WPwatercooler Network. So go over to WPwatercooler.com and check out all the stuff that we got going on over there. I'd appreciate it. Christie, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I don't know if my self-introduction is going to be as awesome and concise as Bridget. That was like on point. But my name is Christie Chirinos. I'm laughing so much I might say my name wrong.
Do it again. Tell us about you, Christie.
My name is Christie Chirinos, and I am one half of Caldera Lab. So we make Caldera Forms, which is a drag-and-drop form builder plugin for WordPress. And I am a fan of email marketing.
Nice. Yeah, I don't understand email marketing. I'm hoping that you can explain this whole data-centric part of it, because I love data, and I would love to know more about the how I can make my email marketing feel more data-centric. So I can kind of gamify it myself and go like, ooh, look, I got 4 more clicks, or ooh, look, I got 3 more subscribers, or a couple opens, or they went through the funnel or whatever. So like those sorts of things. So I'm curious about what you can kind of explain to us, especially when it comes to using this for your WordPress business. So tell us a little bit about how you got started in doing what you're doing and what you're doing now.
Well, getting started doing what I'm doing, especially in the context of putting together email marketing campaigns, I actually started doing that in some nonprofit work. So it was a full-time job a couple of years back that first got me started just managing a newsletter, right? Which is like this thing that people think anybody can do this, right? Like just log on to the thing and like put together a newsletter, collect the article, send it out. It goes out at this time every month. And and I sort of quickly learned that it wasn't that simple, right? And that the newsletter wouldn't get that much engagement unless you really played with it and unless you really took care with it. And the platform that nonprofit was using is MailChimp, right, which is a pretty popular one. And I started experimenting with a lot of the features that are available in there, and it went from there, right? So it became one of those things where we always hear all of this talk about experimenting and testing your assumptions when it comes to your marketing, to collect data, to see what's effective, to see what's not effective, and to iterate appropriately every time that you send out a communication. And from there, you start moving around. The content is the first thing that people usually play with, and then eventually you graduate to the lists and the people that you're addressing and the different segments of people that you're addressing, right? So that was one of my first introductions to email marketing. And then I started doing the same thing for Caldera Forms. And so that was a different level of experimentation, because we had the opportunity to play with a lot more information about people and what they were using the product for. And the different kinds of email marketing communications, right? So when you're thinking about email marketing, there's like pretty discrete kinds of communications that you're getting, which are your transactional emails, right? Like you do something with the organization does something back with you. You make a purchase, you get a confirmation, right? And then you have more of direct emails, right? So newsletters are an example of that, but also limited time discounts, or what we see a lot, right, which is like high quality content via email. So getting to play with that was interesting. And then I took on a project with a pretty large nonprofit whose entire approach to advertising their business and connecting with their constituents was email marketing, right? So this was like a huge thing. This the emails went out multiple times a week to all kinds of different people, and so I learned a lot about not just experimenting with content, but then also writing copy and all the nuances of that, but then also the details that it involves to break things down into segments, break people down into what they're interested in, and like really get out those like who, what, when, where, why type communications out.
So how do those segments, like I'm a MailChimp user as well. I use it both personally as well as for the show here, as well as at the nonprofit I work at. I work at a church, and so we have a fairly decent number of people in our mailing lists that are separate lists that I don't know why they built it this way when they started building it this way, but having that segmentation where, like, for instance, on WPwatercooler, I have two different segments that are set up. One that's just for the people that watch the show, and then I have a whole nother one that's just for the people that interact, that come on the show, that want to be on the show, want to be notified when the show goes live and that sort of stuff. And so by doing that, I'm not having to have two separate lists. I'm just having one list that goes to, that I can then dictate which one is going to get, you know, that content based on that segmentation.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you start out with that? Like, how was it that you're like, oh, well, how could I segment out this list and make it so that it's easier for me to be able to send it to the appropriate people?
Well, MailChimp is a super interesting platform because what you're describing is essentially like MailChimp Sin 1, right? Which is this idea of having multiple lists in your account when what you should have is segments. Right,
yep.
Which is super common. There's a couple of reasons that happens, right? The first one just being a lack of understanding, right? Like you're like, I have these different groups of people and I need to figure out how to address them differently. Oh, those are separate lists, right? Which is like a pretty logical conclusion.
Right.
And if you like read the MailChimp docs, they're like, don't do this, right? But it's like, it's so intuitive to do such a thing. And then the biggest risk with doing that is that eventually you find yourself in like abuse complaint hell.
Yep. I unsubscribed from this, and now why am I still getting this email? And you're like, well, actually, you're on two separate lists from us. That's what happened.
Right.
Yeah.
So with like such an incredibly popular and ubiquitous email marketing platform, it's like that's something that everybody needs to be really aware of, right? Like it's like, don't make multiple lists. It's so easy to do it, but don't do it. But it's totally reasonable, right? Because it also allows you to have different sign-up forms. And then when you have a MailChimp user that maybe isn't like so savvy with getting people like tagged the right way, it can be really tempting to have those lists, right? But so like that's number one thing. Like anybody listening out there, you have your MailChimp account and you have all these lists going on. Like maybe try to consolidate those. It's not super hard once you have the lists going, because you can export those lists as and then re-upload them to your main list and actually segment them in the upload. So it's a pretty straightforward thing. It's just kind of like a pain in the butt.
Right.
But it'll save you a lot of heartache to do it sooner rather than when you realize that you have like people being like, why am I still on this list? What's going on? Right. And then with that said, once you have that list, it depends on the platform you're using. With Caldera Forms, we don't actually use MailChimp anymore. We used to, but now we're using ConvertKit. We're pretty big fans. But the concept behind it is the same, right? Which is this idea of using a tag, or in MailChimp's case, like a field, to identify a person in a certain, it's that kind of person, like a who, what, when, where, why, right? So like, why are they signed up? Where are they? At what point did they become a subscriber? And being able to create meaningful communications through that, right? And all of that comes down to like personalization, right? Like we're all bombarded by email all of the time, and this is like marketing 101, that having an email that is just slightly personalized, and I don't mean like a first name merge tag, like whatever, right? But like just a little bit more personalized than that actually goes a really long way. And the data actually shows that, right? That like even like a small degree of personalization takes you from like the really sad industry average open rates to like the exciting open rates, like in the 30s and 40s and 50s.
Nice. Well, and so the data part of it, like what things are we looking at that can be, you know, that we can then analyze based, you know, that are in these different email campaign applications? Like what, like I know you can look at open rates, I know you can go look at click-throughs, but there's other stuff that can kind of be tied in as well, including Google Analytics and using the tagging from that as well, right?
Yeah. So there's like the essentials of the metrics that you can be looking at with your emails, right? Which are you send things out, at what rate are people opening them, at what rate are people clicking on them, and if you have the setup, this is really great, at what rate are they actually converting on your website, right? So like if you have the setup, like you said, using Google Analytics to actually track from open to click to purchase, that's really great. That's your most basic metric, right? Then there's the next layer of that, which is the more intentional data collection, right? So let's say that, and especially when it comes to like something like MailChimp, you have a lot of really powerful multivariate testing tools. So the next layer between like what was the effect, right, is looking at the chat.
It gets distracting. I totally get it.
Whoa, I totally lost my train of thought. So you have this like next layer of very intentional data collection, which actually gives you feedback about your audience, right? Like beyond the effect of your emails. And then I think that backing up a little bit, those basic metrics have to be compared to some kind of industry average, right? Those metrics are pretty meaningless on their own. What is really good is to be able to compare them to an industry average and also to compare them to your past performance, right? Like there's no better indicator than like where have you been as opposed to where are you going.
What do you think, Bridget?
Okay, so I love you. I'm so glad you're on this show.
I love it because usually what ends up happening is I'll start talking about some stuff, and then Bridget's like, okay, so we're gonna go off on this other tangent altogether, and she just runs us off to some other spot. And I'm like, wait, I'm not done with my thought. But what I love is that Christie comes on here and she just starts dropping one little science bomb after another over and over and over again. And Bridget's just like, yep, yep, Oh, well, yeah, yep, I would do that too. Yep. And it's awesome. I love it.
I don't do all of that.
But you're nodding your head. I watched you. You're kind of like, yeah,
I agree with you that should happen.
Right.
But also, I'm not a developer. And
wait, you have to be a developer to do mailing lists?
Listen, no. See, the thing is, you do the lists, and the lists are right. You do the segmentation, and it's a total pain in the ass. If then, if this, like every time I have, look, I'm just going to confess, and it doesn't matter. Like you guys are all rat me out to Devin and Jason anyway. But every time Jason says, okay, let's do a thing that goes to only our Give bundle purchases, I just want to kill myself and quit my job. Because it's a total pain in the ass to go, okay, I want it to everybody who's a Give purchaser, but only if they purchased the Give Pro bundle, the Give, or the Give Plus bundle, or the Give Basic bundle. And then you have no flipping idea if it actually works, because I don't cross-pollinate that from EDD. So, you know, and I have no idea. I just want to send one email to everybody.
Yep.
And I know that that's not right, but even in MailChimp, it's so hard because why it's hard is this. It's so easy to screw it up. Email is not, listen, 2 weeks ago, you guys, I'll just confess since we're all close here, and Roy will start tweeting about it anyway. But I did an email, sent it to my boss. The boss checked it. We're all like, okay, it's good, send it out. Guess what? The link didn't work. None of us clicked on the link. So it's like FUCA. And here's the thing, like I'm the crazy person that's always like testing. It's not a web page. You can't just go in there and fix the link, right?
Yeah.
So I agree with everything you said, but like let's roll it back from the MBA version a little bit, because you know we're not worthy for you to be on our show. Like, okay, so let's go with a persona. You're a freelancer. You're just now starting to see yourself as an agency. Okay, you're building websites. You're just now starting to realize you need a niche in pizza shops. Okay, instead of every Tom, Dick, and Harry that wants you to do a 500 site. You're also just now realizing you should never charge $500 for a site. You should charge $500 for them to talk to you. Okay, so this is the person, the freelancer who's becoming an agency. They realize email marketing is the way to go. What advice do you give to that WordPress person on where to start with their segmenting? Now that we've agreed with your theory.
For that persona, I think my first piece of advice after collect emails, because those are valuable capital, right, is probably segment supporters versus customers, right? And I think that probably holds true for like exactly the person that you described, but it's also very generic advice for just about anybody else that might be watching this, right? And it's this idea of like separating the people that are paying for your stuff and the people that are just like, I like you, you're cool, and I want to be on your mailing list because of whatever useful information you're doing, right? Because that way you don't have to send out messages that are like, if you'd like to buy.
They're like, right? I don't even want to buy your thing. I don't even care about your thing. I'm just a supporter. That's it.
Right.
I hate those emails. And I know you hate these emails too, where you just bought the product and then like a week later you get an email that says 30% off our product. It's great. And you're like, dude, like I just bought this thing. Why are you telling me that you're now giving me a 30% off coupon for a thing? Or, you know, oh, we're just doing a new upgrade of the software. And it's like, okay, but do I still get the discounted price? Do I need to pay a discounted price? Am I in this window where I get it for free? And I think that's where that segmentation piece comes in, because it's like you got to look at this and see how do you, and at some point I'd like to discuss this where, especially when it comes to what Bridget's thing is that she was talking about, is that your data is already in the web service, already in MailChimp or whatever, and now you need to update it, and you need to do that segmentation from there. So I want to put a little bookmark in there, and I definitely want to discuss that. But let's talk a little bit more about what we were discussing here, where you're taking that segmentation and now you're going to start kind of working through who is it that you're going to put into these various segments.
Yeah, I mean, that's like super general, right? Like if we had to go with one thing, right? But there was a lot to unpack in what Bridget said. And
yeah, totally.
And I think with going back to like the one piece of advice, it's like if that particular example doesn't apply to you, the question that I would ask is like, if you are asking the question, if you are a blah, 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 like that's the first segment you want to make. For example, with Caldera forms, like the most basic segment that we could have is this for you or for a client?
Okay.
Right? Because we kept writing this thing in our emails that was like, for you or your clients. The products that you're using for you or your clients, right? And like after like the 30th time that I said that, I was like, this is dumb, right? Yeah. Like we have to
figure it out. Which one is it?
Right.
So right. How do you figure it out? Like, how do you pull your list, or how do you find out like how do you find out? Like, for instance, you guys have the freemium model in that you have a free product, but then you also have, so everybody's your customer.
Yep.
But you're also needing to figure out like which ones of them actually purchased add-ons that tie into your system, so that way you know that they are spenders. They're actually spending money on that product.
Wait, with the caveat that we're in the WordPress business where we don't know who our free customers are.
Yeah.
Oh, well, we can't go down that rabbit hole today, Bridget. We only have 40 minutes.
But this is a passion of Jason, Neil, and Christy and I. Every time the three of us are together, that's all we talk about. So I had to drop it in there.
So, you know, we're like
I was drinking Diet Coke for the record.
we're like throwing it out there into the universe and then just like drawing it right back. But yeah, you know, so that's like an example for what that process looked like for Caldera Forms. So like, for example, for the nonprofit, it's not really about like clients or you or your purchase, right? But it was, so this nonprofit focused on getting women to run for office, right? So the question was, do you want to run now or later?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because you, and the way that you identify that is by really thinking and being like really conscientious of the way that you were writing your communications. And if you were using those words like, or this, if that, then like that, Bridget, you were complaining about this, right? It's like you hate those like conditional things
I know.
in the segments. That's it. That's your cue to know like, okay, maybe this is where I can start with these segments. So that was the first piece. The other piece that I thought was super important was like, this idea of the ideal versus the reality, right? Like, and this is an overall ideological concept, right? Which is like, if I had unlimited resources, everything in my business would be perfect, right? Like, I have a very good understanding of how things should be.
Right.
Right. Like our actual challenge is to figure out how to use the limited amount of time and resources that we have to make things as effective as possible. Right. That's especially true for like the persona that you described, right? The freelancer that is doing it all. They're doing the work, but they're also marketing the business and they're also managing the business. And they're like, I don't have time to export my CSVs, Christy. And that's legitimate. And it's not wrong. That's called like being an entrepreneur and running a business, right? And so on like a 10,000 level, with a 1,000-foot view, you actually have to think like, is this worth my time? There are instances in which it is not worth your time, right? And that was like how this whole thing started. The reason that I'm here was because Jason, you posted that Facebook status. I was like, I hate email marketing, right? And it's like, well, you hate email marketing because you're being marketed at when you're not the right person to be marketed at.
Oh my gosh.
Right?
I mean, I signed up for one mailing list thing just recently, and I'm like, I can't believe, I mean, I knew I was going to get emails, right? But I'm getting like 10 a day from one thing. And every single thing's like, oh, you should buy this product and this would be great. And we have this great add-on for this. And there's this other thing for that. And I'm like, I don't know why, like, are these people making plugins as well? Or are they only sending out emails? Like, do they only have an email sender person?
Is it a craft beer plugin pairing email? Like, if you're using Caldera Forms, then you should be drinking pale ale. And if you're using Gravity Forms, you should definitely be in a more hoppy kind of beer.
I don't know. This is the one that I joined had to do with building out a like video marketing type of thing where it's like, oh, you're gonna learn how to vlog. Here's how to learn how to vlog, and we're gonna talk about it. And then it's like they're releasing 10 vlogs a day, and I'm like, guys, like I don't even know if I want to use your thing, and I definitely don't want to sign up for your class. So like, why am I getting so many of these emails? And did I click all the little check boxes that said like, I'm in all your segments, spam me in 100 different ways? I don't know. So yeah.
I mean, that seems like a pretty unusual case. I don't know what's going on there.
I don't know. Even Old Navy, they're like, listen, I used to joke that if dating is about communication and managing expectations, then I'm dating Amazon. Because they're reliable, they email me, they text me, they show up at my door, right?
Yeah. Same day delivery, it's actually better than most relationships.
Better than Tinder. Yeah. So what I'm saying is that Old Navy is like my boyfriend on the side. And I love Old Navy. And I'm trying to bring it down to a level that people understand, right? People understand human connection, dating, like having that side job thing going on.
5 stars will buy again.
I get 3 emails a day from Old Navy. There's no way I need to buy that much clothes, even if I want to, which I am now sporting a shirt from Old Navy. But my entire outfit is sponsored by Old Navy. Anyway, my point is that the real question that I think Jason's getting at, all humor and dating analogies aside, what about the frequency of your communication? How do you figure out what that is with your data-centric approach? Christie.
You use data. I hate that answer, right? It's like, well, it depends. That's like the most
No, but it
useless
depends. It's
answer,
like
but it's
ridiculous.
true.
Of course, we know eggs go in cake batter. How many eggs? Like, I know it depends if you're doing a sheet cake or a cake muffins or a wedding cake, but let's talk about this freelancer person. That's most of our demographic. Let's assume for this episode that 90% of the people watching are the freelancer-ish agency person.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So it doesn't depend for them. Let's give them something to start with. Best
Love
case
it.
scenario, they're going to leave this workshop, starting email with ConvertKit next week. You're going to get a referral fee from the affiliate link, and they're going to get business. Let's do a benchmarking.
Yep. Every single freelancer, I would start here. What is your goal? Why are you thinking about engaging in more serious email marketing? Are you playing? Are we role playing? I don't know what we're doing here.
Yeah. Okay, role play. I'm like that. So here's the thing, Christie. I have work this week and I have work next week, but I don't know what I'm doing in September. And I don't know how I'm going to pay my quarterly taxes. So I need to build up my backlog of work. So how's email marketing going to help me with that?
Okay, so you are trying to use email marketing as a way to generate leads, or are you using email marketing as a way to nurture your leads? Because those are two different things.
Oh, that's a good question.
I would start with the goal. I would start with defining a goal. Doing email marketing because you think email marketing is a good idea is a really great way to get into that hole that we were talking about of doing a thing that doesn't have a high return on your investment because you think that everything needs to be perfect, but you don't have enough time to do all the perfect things, right? Like that's why I really wanted to address that and unpack that, because yes, for some people, it's not worth your time. What's your goal? So let's pretend that you were like, well, I have, for whatever reason, like this pretty robust list of potential high quality leads, and I don't really know which of them are like really, really warm leads and which one of them are like just whatever, but like they're all some degree of potential customer, right? Okay, so then I would ask, now you've nailed down who that person is, what do they need? What does that profile of person want to read about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, with website work, it's one and done. Unless they're doing it right in the first place, they're doing a one-year contract with maintenance. But that's not our audience because they're not there. They barely think they're an agency. So let's do the one and done. Lead generation is their goal. How frequently should they email their base?
I would start with once a month.
Oh, that infrequently.
Yes.
That surprises me.
An experiment. I would start with once a month. And the reason for that is Jason's story about how annoying it is to be emailed frequently. You are better off not emailing frequently enough than emailing so quickly that the person unsubscribes.
Ooh.
Right? Like that's like the worst possible case scenario. They're like, no, I don't want to be a part of this anymore. Stop. Right, exactly. Exactly. So I would start with once a month. Also, another like potential reason for that is if you're a sole proprietor who is just beginning to take their freelance work seriously, you're doing a million other things.
Right.
And committing to emailing your list where you like may not potentially have a very fleshed out email marketing strategy in terms of marketing goals and target audience, like why are you doing that, right? So I would start with once a month. And I would go with that rule and start experimenting. So
with
maybe
the, sorry to cut you off, but are you
No,
repurposing content that you're already writing as blog posts? Or are you just throwing in an RSS feed and calling it a day? Or are you actually like crafting this in some way for the segment that you're trying to write for, if you've already started putting in a few little segments?
So if I was a freelancer, I would try to think about what those potential clients would find me useful for and wouldn't unsubscribe. My guess is if they are on my list and I'm a freelancer, they like my work, maybe they met me at a WordCamp, maybe they have read a useful thing on, like, why do I have their email address? I probably have their email address because they went on my website and I had a useful article about how to DIY something on their site when they needed help. That's a pretty solid assumption, which means that that's what my content in the email marketing should be, right? I think that if you send me a newsletter of just like, here's some cool stuff I saw on the internet, that's not targeted enough, right? And that's what I'm talking about with like that target audience. Every single communication starts with like, what does that person want to read, right? Because otherwise you get the like, I don't care, I have like 90 unread emails, whatever effect, right? Before this, I tweeted out like, what newsletters do you, like what companies' emails do you read and why, right? And the answers that we got were like, oh, this company because it's useful. Right. So the worst thing you can do when it comes to email marketing, because we're so inundated with information, is talk at people, right? So yeah. I would always start the question with, what does that audience want to read? So drawing back to the freelancer, you know, I probably have their email address for that reason. I would feel inclined to send out a newsletter once a month that has useful tricks from your local web development expert as to how to do things on your website. Pick hot topics, right? Like everyone's concerned about security. Everyone's concerned about like getting more traffic, right? Like topics that are easy to understand and wrap your head around and are going to have this newsletter exist in my head as a useful thing. I would do that for enough to collect some data, right? So if I'm doing once a month, I mean, like I'm pulling this out of nowhere, out of thin air, but maybe like 3 months. Send out 3 newsletters, see what people click, see what topics resonated with people. So this is like where the like who, what, when, where, why is coming out, right? So like who's clicking? Who are the people on the list that are like constantly engaging with my stuff? I might draw them out into a meaningful segment, right? Like those are potentially quality leads. What are they clicking? If I was like, oh, okay, general topics that are of general interest to this audience might be like security, might be whatever. Actually see like what topics got clicked, right? Like what time of day are they opening the emails, right? Like that's like a thing that still really matters, especially in this particular context. The people that you're probably trying to turn into clients are most likely not checking their email outside of the workday. Right? So figuring out like what time that is most effective at so you're on top of the inbox, right? And so looking at what happened and refining your strategy. Now with the frequency question, right, I think that after those 3 months, if I'm not getting like mad unsubscribes, I might bump it up to twice a month. And I would compare.
What would be mad unsubscribes? What would be too many, percentage-wise?
Is there a hard number?
Like if you saw it, you're consulting BridgetWillardDev.com, and I'm like, I'm getting 30% unsubscribed. And what would you say to that?
That's too high.
What about 10%?
I don't know if I would worry about 10%, especially
that's like there's got to be some normal attrition, right?
Well, they also probably looked at one of your emails and went like, "Oh my gosh, like what is this person on? I don't understand why they would write something about this. I'm done."
She shouldn't even be allowed to have PHP Storm. So,
I mean,
uses Coda. What kind of person are you? Click. You know, it's like that sort of thing. No, I get. I never really thought about looking at, and it's funny that you said this because I was trying to figure out how you can kind of structure those segments out. by looking at who's opening what and what type of thing do you feel that, like, what story is that particular mailing actually conveying? Like, or writing? Is this story about how I had a really terrible client and I got them to a point where they're super happy with the stuff that I'm building? Or is this a story that, this person had a horrible website and I actually rebuilt it and this is what they ended up with and this is a great website, and people started clicking on the things and looking at it? Like, those are the types of things that you're looking for data-centric wise, to figure out, like, hey, how can I turn these people into, like, how can I give them quality content and make sure that they're actually looking at this stuff? Because that's one of the things that MailChimp tells you when you first log in. It's like, hey, did you know that if you just segmented this thing out, you can kind of trick your brain into thinking that you're actually have a really great mailing list, when really you still have a crappy mailing list, but you're only sending good stuff to those people that are actually going to click on it. And I never really thought about it that way until you started describing this, that I can send the content that works really well for that particular segment to them, so that way I'm not wasting, not that it costs anything, but that I'm not wasting a bunch of emails to people that are going to look at it and go, geez, he's writing about this thing again I don't really care about. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, you said not that it costs anything, but then you described that, like, reader reaction.
That's the cost.
Cost.
That's the cost. Yeah, the cost is, dude, like, you really sent another email saying, oh, check out this great thing. And it's like, it's not great to me. I don't really care about this stuff.
Right.
So how do you pull that data out then, like, when it comes to, like, click-throughs for stuff? Because some people open up their emails and they just go, like, on the Gmail or whatever, like JJJJJ KKKKK, and just kind of, like, fly through this stuff and go, like, okay, I looked at all my stuff, I'm done. Inbox 0, don't have to worry about it anymore.
Oh, I will tell you exactly.
How do you do it, Bridget?
When I sit here at this desk and I'm officially working, anything I don't want today that's already in my inbox is gone. And that means even Yoast. The only thing I will always read is from Moz, because it's directly related to my job. Now, and this is what my strategy has always been. It wasn't data, it was just intuition. Back when I was in construction, I want to be the ding in your inbox. So I don't send anything until after 9 o'clock, because I was in collections. So in collections, you talk to people between 11 and 2. And that's the only time you're going to get a response. But recently, I started experimenting with 4:30, because I started thinking, like, oh, it's 4:30. I don't give a crap about anything. Let's look over here. Oh, look, there's an email from the WordPress blog. Add a simple payment button to your WordPress premium or business site. And then I'll look at it and I'll go, yeah, I'm done. Delete, which I just did live. So that's what I'm saying. Like, that's what will happen is I don't want that notification. I don't want the red there. I don't want the judgment of the red circle with a number telling me that I haven't done my work, because my work comes through Slack, Asana, and email. And when I come in to work with 30 unread emails, F that, I'm out of here. It's not going to be Yoast telling me that I need to do my job. As much as I love them, you know what I'm saying? I'm being extreme, but
right.
but because I am in email marketing and because these are my friends, I don't unsubscribe. So I'm ruining their open rate.
Yeah, you're not voting with your unsubscribe. You're not going like, I'm done with you guys.
I don't care about SEO Markdown. I care about local SEO. So I want all of the Yoast emails, but I'm not going to write anything in Markdown.
I mean, that's kind of why Boomerang exists. But if you're not using Boomerang, then
I don't think email should be that hard. That's what I'm saying. I'm a real person. You're a dev. You like to program things. I don't want to program things. I don't even want to program my coffee pot. That's why I bought a Keurig. Water, open, thing, go.
So what Bridget wants is she wants a segment that she wants it so that all these different email marketers will have a segment that says, like, what time do you want to receive our email? What time are you not busy? I mean, that right there, geez, if you did that and implemented that, Bridget might actually read your email.
I'm not going to read anything before 9 a.m. Pacific
Then you
time.
could just use Time Warp inside MailChimp and be like, okay, so we're going to send her to this at 6 in the morning. We're good. 4:30, here you go. I mean, can you get that crazy, Christy? Can you get that crazy in like in segmenting this out and going like, I really know that these people would totally read my stuff, but obviously I'm doing something wrong. So
we're not trying to break you. We're just trying to break up the humor and the seriousness.
Honestly, what I was going to say was, Bridget, everything that you just said you do sounds to me like what the vast majority of people do with their email.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for saying that. Can you just say that one more time? Look at the camera and say, Bridget.
I'll record this for you. Okay, here we go.
Can we just send this to my boss right here? I'm just kidding.
It sounds to me like your attitude towards email is pretty common. Why is it that a 30% open rate is good? Right?
Like, I'm excited to get over 25, honestly.
Right.
I'm serious here. When I report for email marketing, it's like 28. Yes!
Yeah.
It's bad.
Yeah. Everything that you described sounds exactly like when you are email marketing, you just laid out all the forces upon which we are working against with every single potential reader. Most people aren't going to read your email, right? Like, your email marketing alone is probably a pretty poor way to get out a really important announcement, right? Because I also hate email, right? Because it also makes me feel like I'm not getting anything. Like, everything you described, you're like, no, but doesn't mean like, yeah, like I think that given what we know about the average metrics of how people interact with email marketing, you're describing some really common phenomenon, right? Like, and if you put the other hat on, right? Like, as the email marketer can accept that that is the force upon which you're working against, now you're talking, right? Because you just said, like, you will read the Moz one every single time. Why? Because it's related to my job, right? And that's what I'm saying is, like, draw it back to this 10,000-foot view of, like, what makes good email marketing. It's all about the audience. We are bombarded with information. There's no, like, magic color. There is no magic frequency. There is there's no like magic number that's going to make your email marketing good. The only thing that's going to make your email marketing good is, can you nail down that audience and what they want to read? If you can do that, you're going to have the Bridget and Moz blog effect, or you're going to have like me and Sephora emails effect, right? Like, I open all of them, and sometimes I even click, which is crazy. And you can start with general good practices to baseline your strategy, right? But we're talking about data-centric marketing. I could throw out and be like, okay, well, the ideal frequency is this, and the ideal content length is this. But, like, I am probably making that up. Anybody who has those hard and fast rules is probably making them up, and they're probably outdated, right? When we're talking about data-centric marketing, we're talking about focusing on the audience, focusing on what the audience wants, and then designing small and approachable tests that will let you refine the strategy over time, right? So that's only a frequency, like, I don't know, choose once a month because it seems sustainable. And if things don't explode, maybe bump a little bit more. And if that does better, bump up your frequency. And if your unsubscribe rates go up from period 1 to period 2, then like maybe back off, right? And then we get into this idea of like, I don't have time for this, Christy, which is totally legitimate. Pick one thing.
That sounds actionable. I like the actionable plan. One thing, one persona, one segment, once a month. Start there.
Yeah. Yeah, if we're gonna make up a rule about like baselines, right? Like, let's just like start with like number 1. Be like, one email once a month to one segment, right? Like, I don't know how that applies to like attrition rate percentage, because 1% is really low.
Yeah.
But but it's a good baseline, because at the end of the day, you're just comparing it to your previous performance, right, and industry averages, right? Like, anybody who was like, I'm going to send out an email every single day, Christy, I'd be like, please don't. Don't. That's a terrible idea, right? But outside of these like really extreme examples, oh, I have this email marketing strategy and I only send out 1 email a year. Bad idea, right? Like, I don't really know if I like that. I don't think that's frequent enough. But outside of extremes, we're talking about Data-Centric. We're talking about the constant process of experimentation and reiteration.
I like that because it's really achievable. And because it's really, I mean, it's like, so you're like the Carl Alexander of email marketing, right?
I think Carl Alexander's the Carl Alexander of email marketing.
I mean, he's all Mr. Object oriented, all super conceptual. Every time you talk to him, you feel like it's just.
I want to subscribe, but how many emails does he send a week? That's what I want to know.
I know, right? But what I'm saying is, like, the high level sometimes gets. It's great. I love this. I love this conversation. But for me, I'm always about the action. I'm the call to marketing person. I want the button. I want the button click. So for our people, if they try that, that's a good place to start. And then, so when you're just to get a little into the weeds here. So like if you're in your list, MailChimp, whatever, Aweber, whatever you're using, Constant Contact. So like, you're going to look at the list and you're going to look at the people and sort them by their individual open rate to see if they're like super fans. What is the strategy with starting to segment out those warmer leads or whatever?
Okay, so if we have the freelancer persona and we're giving immediate next steps that you can take tonight, right, to implement a better marketing strategy for your freelance practice. You're already collecting lists, you're already doing great. Or excuse me, you're already collecting emails, you're already doing great, right? And again, I'm drawing back this idea of like, yes, we can have this hour conversation about how to have a perfect email marketing strategy, but you're also doing everything else. If you're just collecting emails and you're emailing that whole list once a month, and you're like, hey there, here's like this one really useful thing that you might find given the audience and content demands hypothesis that I'm putting forth, great, you're good, you're doing the thing, right? Like I'm not gonna be like, no, but like you could do all these other things. Like no, like there's nothing I dislike more than people coming at me with like their grand ideas about how I can run my business better. I'm like, yeah, you know, like if I just had like 3 more me's, that'd be great. Like, you know, so yeah. So if you have that one thing going, that's great. You're already doing that. That's super manageable. You're looking for the next step. I would find that one segment, which, as we said, find it in your speech. If you are a blah, 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 or a blah, 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 right? And from there, I would choose one variation based on this concept of like, you know, like the journalist who, what, when, where, why, right? Try something like, well, you know, the freelancer, we said supporter versus potential lead. Try sending the supporters a email that celebrates a recent client success and has a call to action to share on social media. I don't know, like making this up. And send the list that are potential leads something useful with a call to action that says contact me for more information. And see what happens, right? We're talking about data-centric email marketing, so I'm not like throwing out this like big blanket rule, you should tweet 12 times a day. Like, no, that's like, it's not gonna help in this particular instance. Take that really, really small, approachable experiment and see what happens. As for figuring out who's in what segment, I would just ask, right? Like there's somewhere on the internet upon which people are being like, yes, I would like to subscribe to your mailing list. They even have to go into their email and be like, yes, I'm sure about this. Like that's a lot of work, right? So like somewhere along the line, you can, you know, use, if you're using MailChimp, there's like that really great like list embed form, right? And you can just like drag and drop the like checkbox. You can also use the Calera Forms MailChimp add-on to do such a thing. You know? And there's like a checkbox, right? That is like, are you looking to, or, oh my God, it's this simple. Yes, I am looking to have custom web development work done in the next 6 months. Check the box, don't check the box. That's your segment, right? Like
when they sign up or later in an email?
When they sign up.
When they sign up, okay.
Great time to do
so
that.
They are they're self-labeling at the subscribe. They're self-identifying at the subscribe level. This is the ideal place.
It's not the ideal place, but it's the easiest place.
Okay.
Right? Like, make your form, throw it out on the internet. You're already asking the person for their email address. You have a checkbox on there that's like, check. It's super approachable to you.
So
right?
what about Bridget's email list that she already has 10,000 people on there, and she's already shooting that stuff out, and she's like, "Oh, segmentation too hard.
For the record,
do I need a GitHub account? I don't know what to do."
Look, Matt Cromwell will kill me. We have segmentation.
I know, but I'm saying the people that have that that whole idea of like, "Oh no, I just can't deal with segmentation." But how do I segment what I already have? Like, you know, my mailing list has first name, last name. And first name, half the time, you don't know if they're male or female. You don't know if they're from this country or that country. You can't really get a whole lot of stuff from them, from, you know, just first name, last name, and email address, other than maybe they have like a country domain name or something. So how do you make that happen?
So tree diagram of potential options, right?
Sure.
One, you can still ask. MailChimp especially has a survey feature, which like you can look up the specific tag for it, and you can seriously be like, click here if you are a blah, 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 click here if you are a blah, 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 and it counts as a vote, and the person is set up. You can just ask. Like in your next newsletter, be like, hey, help me give you more relevant content. Are you a blah, blah, blah or a blah, 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 right? The way that we collect our information about that segment that I referenced, the one that's like, is this for you or is this for a client, is we ask at checkout. Right? So like they're already there. I'm not like sending out some massive survey to be like, please segment yourself. I'm trying to improve my email marketing strategy, right? Like I'm getting them where they already
Thank you for giving us money. We want to steal more money or get more money from you. So please. But then we know that you're going to be using this particular, you know, thing because this is what our product does. Yeah, I know. Okay.
So I'm getting them wherever they already are, and I'm just like asking, right? So that's one, right? There's also different ways to incentivize that kind of participation, right? With most email marketing platforms, every user has a profile that they can update themselves, right? And so you could include a link to that, which most email marketing platforms will let you use a link in your email communication that like takes that person to their profile. And you can be like, hey, update your profile for more relevant emails. Update your profile for a discount, right? And the way that you would set that up in MailChimp would be something like, hey, update your profile for a discount. And then you have an automation going on that regardless of what segment they're in, because they have now been added to a segment, whatever it is, they get an automated email that's like, hey, here's 20% off, for example, right? Either way, it's like, I think we might be overthinking the fact that you can just be like, hey, so like, what are you? And that's actually pretty okay.
So the reason
so therefore, can in fact be used to update existing subscriber information. Yes.
Yeah, and so I think that's probably why you guys ended up going with ConvertKit instead, is because of the fact that it has more product-centric type things built into it, so you can kind of get a better understanding of what your customers are doing and how you end up interacting with them that way, right?
Yeah. You know, I know we're not like doing like product pitches here, but I think that the way I think about
Bridget does every time she does her intro. You're all good. Have at it.
I'm tweeting that, as mentioned on WPblab just now, call to our forms MailChimp add-on link, hashtag not a sponsor, hashtag just friends. Boom. It's getting tweeted right now. Are you kidding me? I'm a marketer. I can't help it. I can't not do product placement. I thought that was so awesome.
I'm like looking at the chat and listening to this. I'm getting really giggly. It's 11 p.m. on the East Coast.
Thank you so much for coming in. That's a late hour.
But yeah, so it's when it comes to these two products, right? The way that I kind of think about it is like MailChimp is this like incredible thing because it's so easy, and ConvertKit is not as easy. Actually, it's like extremely user unfriendly, actually.
Like design
right?
wise, a whole bunch of stuff, right?
Yeah, like I love it. So maybe because I love it, I'm allowed to say horrible things about it. It's the worst interface in the world, and it drives me crazy every time I use it, right? But the reason that we use ConvertKit instead of MailChimp now is because there's a lot more power behind the kinds of segments that I can build.
So it's the advanced tools.
It's like the Photoshop of email marketing.
There you go.
Right?
There
Where MailChimp is like canva.com. It's
there
like beautiful and easy, and you can like do all these wonderful things. But like at some point in life, you need Photoshop, and it exists for a reason, right? And we're like at the Photoshop level of email marketing. But drawing back to like these actionable tips and these like, you know, again, like the #1 business problem, right? It's like, you know, all the things that could be better, but you have 24 hours in a day, and 8 of those are wasted sleeping, right? I would say,
if you're lucky.
yeah, if you're lucky. Then I would say pick something that is like big bang for your buck, right? And that tends to be a platform like, I mean, I'm super familiar with MailChimp, so I love MailChimp. I think it's like relatively easy, but you know, it depends on platform. Find what you find easiest, what doesn't take a huge investment of time and money.
What a great show. Thank you so much for being
show.
on. I mean, all of our minds are spinning. The chat is going crazy.
Dude, I'm already rebuilding my campaigns in MailChimp while we're sitting here talking about this. I'm like, dude, I could ask them questions? I'm asking questions. What are you drinking right now while you're reading this mailing?
I would love a I'm always recruiting guest blog posts or telling people what they should write about, since I'm not writing as much as I should on bridgetwiller.com. But actually, this gives me a good idea of like how to do an email marketing audit, because that's what I realize I need to do. I need to go through some of my emails and look at those lists and look at those super fans and segment those out, or talk to the guys about it. But those actionable tips, that's really good advice. You should write about that on Caldera if Josh allows you to write. You get to write too, right? He's not taking all the words. Don't do 1,000. Don't do the 2,000 word. It was the best of time, worst of time blog post that Josh does. But like, here's some actionable tips, and here's how you can use Caldera Forms MailChimp integration. That'd be a great blog post.
Yeah, that should be a thing.
No, because you're so good. Like, this is really good. It's got my brain thinking, because you get in a rut. It's easy to get in a rut because a rut is just a routine, and whatever's working, it works fine enough. But then you don't think about, okay, how can we make this better? You know. So I really appreciate you taking the time and your expertise, donating it for free. And Jason's going to close you out and ask you to tell us where we can find you.
Exactly. Well, thank you very much for being on the show. Thank you for everyone in the chat room for helping us out, both and entertaining us while we were attempting to have a serious conversation. I hope that Roy figures out how to get his clutch to work in his Honda. No joke. They were talking about Honda Civics and stuff. Hilarious.
And Alexander is a singing telegram object-oriented programmer.
Exactly.
Tap dance it out.
So make sure you go over to our website at WPwatercooler.com and click on the links there to subscribe. We'll have links to all the cool stuff that Christie has going on over at their sites, over at Caldera Labs. We really appreciate everything that you guys have done for us, and that we are able to kind of help us out with explaining how data-centric email marketing works, because I'm super stoked. I'm hoping that I'm able to take this information, go back to my nonprofit and say, folks, let's do something really cool with our mailing lists. I really appreciate the time that you took to help us out with that. Lastly, go over to our website, click on the links there to subscribe. If you enjoyed this content, hit the little thumbs up button. And if you don't want to watch us, but you don't mind listening to us, you can also subscribe to us as a podcast. So find wherever it is that you listen to podcasts and hit the subscribe button there. And that's about it. Thank you very much. I'll see you guys tomorrow on WPwatercooler in the morning. Talk to you all later. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.